The king lies deadly wounded on the floor. The prince looks out the window. What happened? Welcome to Creative Contraband.
Welcome to How to Be a Better DM, the show that helps dungeon masters tell better stories and run more engaging games. This is Creative Contraband, where we take ideas from elsewhere and smuggle them into our craft to take it one step further. And remember, all of this is brought to you by Session Zero Studios.
Welcome once again, dear listeners. Welcome to Creative Contraband, the segment of How to Be a Better DM, directed and hosted by me, Danny. For the first time ever, I am going to assume you kind of know who I am and or what I am doing here and or what I like. If you don't, then I highly recommend you to look for the first Creative Contraband episode and you're going to have much more context. Let's get into the topic. Today we're going to talk about the Kuleshov Effect. The Kuleshov Effect is part of a discipline that people call Neurocinema. And it studies how the brain processes different things depending on what we have been shown before. So Lev Kuleshov was the one who discovered, let's say, the Kuleshov Effect. And what he did was he showed the same take, the same video of a man staring at the camera to 4 different groups, but to each group he showed a different video before, a different scene. And people said this man had different emotions, even though it was the same video. So what Kuleshov did was he demonstrated that our brain interprets things depending not only on what it is being shown, but also on what it was shown before. What this tells us is that the order of the scenes or the order of how we show things at the D&D table is important, because we can put clues, we can put breadcrumbs or red herrings even, or we can maybe lead the players to believe something very wrong inadvertently, depending on how we choose the order of our descriptions. At the beginning, I was describing a scene. I was describing a king, a badly wounded body laying on the floor, and the prince was looking out the window. Now, most of you probably already made a story up from that. Of course, this is not an exact science. Maybe some of you thought about something different, but most likely most of you thought about the prince maybe killing the king. Now, what happens if, instead of describing the king lying on the floor, I describe a carriage bringing a young lady outside of the castle, and then I describe the prince looking at the window? Now you will probably think the prince is waiting for the lady, even if the king is actually still laying on the floor. These are not necessarily two exclusive examples. They can be the same world, the same realm, but maybe the prince found the king dead and is waiting for some support, or is waiting for the police. We don't know if maybe he's not waiting for this young lady, he's waiting for the police. So we make up this story when we have incomplete information. And the little bit of information we have, we use to draw conclusions depending on the order we are shown this information. So if I talk about the king, then I talk about the prince, and then 3 minutes later I talk about the carriage, then you are probably going to associate the king's death with the prince. If I talk about the carriage, if I talk about the prince, and then at some other point I talk about the king, then you might also do that, but you are probably more likely to think he's not directly involved in the death of the king necessarily. So when we have mystery campaigns or mystery adventures or arcs, this is especially important. I'm going to give a couple other examples, and of course, just as a disclaimer, this works only up to a point. If you are too blatant about it, or if the emotions are too obvious, then this will not work. If you show a party and people very happy and someone crying, then yeah, I don't think you're going to get a wrong conclusion from it. Well, maybe in the case of crying, it can be crying of happiness or crying of sadness, I don't know. But if I describe someone very angry, then you are probably going to get the reality, right? This person is not having a good time. So, yeah. So, another example. If I am describing, maybe I am panning out, as some dungeon masters tend to do maybe at the end of sessions, and I am describing burned trees and melted armor lying on the floor, and maybe animals, deers running in panic, and then I zoom out and I show or describe a dragon flying, then you are of course going to assume it was the dragon who did this. But what the Kuleshov effect says, as we just discussed, is that the interpretation of the second scene depends on the first scene. So if I only show you a dragon flying and I don't show you the context, you are not going to assume that. Or if maybe I show you I don't know, let's just say the burned forest, and I show you people with torches, you are not going to assume this was a dragon. So this can be either misleading, or this can be useful as breadcrumbs when you want your players to get to the right conclusions. Many shows, TV shows and movies do this. The Invincible animated series does this a lot. It usually plays a lot with plot twists on a short term, usually. It sets an expectation and then maybe a minute later it breaks it. It's not really too much of a long-term thing. Only Murders in the Building, I don't know if you have watched that TV show, it's very good. It does this a lot too. So it's a show about murders, and at some point, without the context, you might find one of the main characters with a bloodied body on their arms, and you draw your conclusions, because you know this is a show about murders, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but you have some context, so yeah, what do you know? Maybe the main character killed them. But if they had shown you that scene, and they had shown you something else first, let's say the person who died was having, I don't know, a heart attack, and they hit their head on furniture or whatever, you wouldn't draw the same conclusion. So yeah, what can we learn from this? I think the examples were enough already. One of the main takeaways, I am going to give you 3, is to trust your players to connect the dots. If you describe everything, if you describe every scene, if you explain every implication, then it's just not fun anymore, and you probably know that sometimes the most fun, the most interesting moments at a table are when the players draw wrong conclusions and you pull that thread and you pull it and you pull it. Number 2, reveal all the information in sequence, never all at once. Because when you reveal all the information at once, then again, you are killing the mystery and they're trying to pick up the clues, and you are also inadvertently shaping the conclusions the party makes. If you give the information sequentially, then maybe they are going to have to work a little bit harder to connect the dots, because the dots are farther away from each other. And lastly, number 3, suggest more than you show. Use the order of the scenes to suggest things. Sometimes, again, you can use red herrings. The next episode is very likely going to be about breadcrumbs and red herrings. Suggest wrong things. It's a suggestion, you are not lying to anyone, but also suggest where the right solution might be. And you can do it in a different way, so they maybe know what is false or what is a conclusion they drew that was not right, and what is actually the truth. They are heroes. They have capabilities, they have powers, they have magic, they have stuff to figure out these things. But for them to be able to feel smart and powerful and good players, you need to give them a challenge. So you post the challenge, of course, never do it in a way that is unfair for the players. just post the challenge, and then they can do their job as players. And you all have fun in the meantime. That's how D&D works. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. Remember, you can find in the description my Instagram. You can find other links to our sponsors. Go check the Thursdays episodes that Tanner and Justin upload every week. And feel free to leave a comment. I love all kinds of feedback. Good one, bad one. I want your feedback. I love it. So thank you very much. Remember, I am Danny. This is Creative Contraband. And until next week, let's roll initiative.
This is Creative Contraband, brought to you by Session Zero Studios.